Hello, Governor Tim Walz. Nice to talk with you, and we appreciate you making time for us today.
Great to be with you. We're out barnstorming the country, and of course, can't wait to get into Wisconsin on Monday.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's get to it right now. New numbers suggest inflation is easing, but when you drill down to core costs, housing prices are still going up. The Harris-Walz plan calls for $25,000 in down payment to help first-time buyers. Some worry that will drive up cost and demand for housing. Why do you think it will work?
Well, we've seen it work, and I will have to say this. Thanks for having me. We do know that housing is a key piece of this, and Vice President Harris and I have the plan to create 3 million more jobs in that down payment assistance. That piece of it, and for myself, someone who used the GI Bill and a VA home loan, it's the down payment piece of that gets you in. People pay it back, the housing prices continue to rise, and you create some generational wealth for folks. And I think right now, that's the one thing. We've seen it in Minneapolis where we've been able to do some of this. We've seen 12% more housing units available, rents coming down 4%. And I think tackling those middle-class cost issues, while inflation is easing, we still want to tackle things, whether it's pharmaceutical prices or whether it's some of the price gouging we see. But I think you're exactly right. The housing piece is the big one. And I think economically, that down payment assistance piece is the barrier for most people.
Well, here's a number that's not getting a lot of attention from both campaigns, the national debt, $35 trillion. Yeah. In Congress, you once sent out pamphlets entitled Standing Up for Fiscal Responsibility in Washington. Were those just the good old days, or how will a Harris-Walz administration reduce overall government spending?
No, and I know Vice President shares my concerns. Look, as a governor, I balance budgets. We're required to. There's no choice about it. When I was in Congress, this is a concern of mine. That's the difference between Donald Trump. His explodes the debt. He had called himself the king of debt. He created more national debt than anyone. And I think that's where Vice President Harris on each one of these has a pay for. For example, on the Medicare expansion for home care for seniors, or whether it's for hearing and vision, we recoup the savings from negotiating on the 10 most used drugs in Medicare, and that's where we get our savings. And then, of course, we're asking for those at the top to pay their fair share, targeting 100 million Americans with tax cuts, those 400,000 and under not seeing any increase, but those at the top finally paying their fair share. So I think you're exactly right. I truly, like most Americans, do have concerns about the national debt. That's why when the two plans are compared side by side, Donald Trump's plan absolutely explodes the national debt, which he did in his 4 years.
Governor, part of your task is to help win over rural voters in places like Wisconsin. So let me ask you about the Second Amendment. You went from an A rating with the NRA as a Democratic congressman to what you once described as straight F's rating as governor after expressing a real parenting concern about school shootings and the need for gun reform. But how do you make a case for more gun laws to rural voters?
Yeah, well, in Minnesota, we passed expanded background checks and then extreme risk protection orders. Those things are supported by nearly 70% of the population and by a majority of gun owners. Look, I'm a hunter, I'm a veteran, I'm going to be out pheasant opener in Minnesota's tomorrow. I'm going to be out there. The things we're proposing do not infringe on your Second Amendment rights, but they do go to our first priority, protecting our children. And for me, the NRA moved from where I was at. They used to be gun safety folks. And then after Sandy Hook, I sat in my office in Washington, D.C. with those parents whose 7-year-olds were massacred in their classroom. And I, like Kamala Harris says, it doesn't have to be this way. And I think to those folks who are out there who are lawful gun owners, want to own their firearms, none of those things will change for you, but we can enhance the safety around keeping those guns, keeping those assault weapons out of our schools, off the streets.
Governor Donald Trump carried around 60 Wisconsin counties in 2016 and 2020. Many of those counties once voted for Barack Obama. Given your rural roots, are Democrats missing the point when it comes to the economy, immigration, and those kitchen table issues with those once blue counties?
Well, I think we need to make sure we're getting out talking to those folks, because there's nothing wrong with the American voters. They're looking and they're trying to understand. I think what the problem was is we had people like Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and large corporations outsourcing jobs that used to be in those communities. We saw Donald Trump's horrific tariffs hurt agriculture. Now we have a Congress that for the first time ever can't pass a farm bill. And we have Donald Trump and J.D. Vance talking about pulling back the infrastructure dollars that are rebuilding water treatment plants, roads, So I think what we need to do is we need to go in there, listen to folks, understand what their concerns were around some of these economics issues, and then make sure we're very clearly articulating how we are different from them and what the impact would make. And I think whether it's home ownership, price gouging, investing in public schools, pathways to good jobs, that's what rural America wants to hear. And I think that we're out there making that case. We'll continue to make the case. Donald Trump has done nothing and did do nothing for rural America other than see the outsourcing of jobs.
Governor Walz, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Charles. Good to talk to you.